Hey folks, today first we'll go over some of the stuff that got done a bit earlier. And then after that, we'll see where we go from there. We probably need to work on the next user interface thing for shorthand, since we haven't yet obviously decided on any particulars for art or anything like that. Okay, so with that in mind, I'll show you what we got so far. There's a few things we need to fix. The first thing, if we init here, if we have build on in the background and we click, let's say, on alpha, it will try and build the object when obviously we don't want it to do that yet. But if we go over here and click here, obviously it builds the room. And yeah, so what we need to do is go into our... I suppose it would be the current game state. So when we have a GUI open, we need to have some kind of cancel raycast state or something along those lines. Let's see. Let's think about it for a moment. Because obviously when you open the UI, there would be some kind of status you'd want to have. So we got playing, room building, room selected, menu open perhaps, or pop-up open. Yeah, that seems fine. Pop-up or pop-up open. We can always change the text later, but that seems like a good setup. And then we need to add that to this bad boy. Seem like that would be correct. Right, where's my... Oh, right, my Stream Deck's being stupid. Question. Oh, is the software not turn on by default? Is it user error they got me this time? I guess we'll find out in a moment here. No? Well, that's a can of beans. Boo. My Stream Deck, for whatever reason, has stopped turning on automatically, so let me open up my Windows for sharing. There we go. We'll be in here for a moment. Don't think we'll need more than one, but... Alright, so that will get us to... probably the promised land. I'm going to really quick assign it in the inspector. What's it complaining about? Yeah. There we go. Down here. Give that the old assignment. And then what we need to do is have game state update when it is opened. Void, or actually be down here with the toggle canvas. Oh, interesting. We actually don't want to do that. So I'll explain why in a moment here. Unless we were going to save the previous state, which I really don't want to do, imagine you were in playing, and then you open up the pop-up, and you decide to cancel out of that pop-up. If I was in the pop-up mode, I would need to know to go back to playing. I suppose we could argue that it'll always be going back to playing once you close a pop-up window, but currently we don't know if that's going to be true. So I suppose it becomes a question of whether or not we want to do that as the implementation. And close a few things since we don't need them for now. Obviously, like I said, I was doing a lot earlier, so... You know what, for now... No, that definitely wouldn't work, because eventually there may be pop-up sequences where you're going from say, room selection into Moosecat selection kind of stuff. So really we just want a Boolean of some kind for raycasts being blocked, and that should be enough. Whoops. There we go. And then we just need to make a function for that. And then later this will probably become a scriptable object of some kind, but... Toggle raycast. Bool enabled. Raycast. Oh, let's go with disabled. That way... Or, yeah, we'll just call it block raycast. That's the block raycast flag. We'll say Boolean. Disable raycast. Now my problem, sometimes you have double negatives and that can be really confusing. So I'm thinking real quick if I want it to be enable raycasts. Maybe we will. We'll do that. Because then it's whether or not to enable raycast. It's a little bit easier on the brain to process sort of what's going on. And I think that's usually a good idea. So this, when we go to unify the pop-ups to having some functions that are shared, I think toggle canvas is going to be one of those. So basically what we're saying is whenever the canvas is open, block raycast. Whenever it's closed, you can enable them. Okay, and then enabled. Otherwise, disabled. Do I need to put that in parentheses? Yes, cool. Okay, so raycasts are now enabled or disabled, depending. And then we need to go into the raycasting object, or class rather. And it does not have game data associated with it currently. Which, again, makes me think I should just make this a scriptable object by itself. But for now, let's not worry about it. We can always fix that at a later date. And then down here, we'll say if gamedata.raycast. In fact, we'll just do it this way. That's fine. So if raycasting is enabled, it'll go through and do its jazz, as they say. Somebody has to somewhere, I'm sure. And then we just need to look up raycast, grab these two, add game data to them. Easy peasy. And now, in theory, if we were to set up this window to have a button for the toggling. And then hide the window. So we're going to be simulating this window being activated by some kind of button, which we don't yet have, but we can always make one in a moment here. All right, so by default, raycasting is not enabled. So if we click, we see nothing happens here. And that's good. Obviously, it should be set to playing right now. And then obviously if we switch it to playing, it still doesn't raycast on the buildings. If we enable, now it does work. So that's all good. And then we go down to the canvas. We're going to toggle it. It's me, confused-io. Did I? Oh, I just disabled the game object. Whoopsie. There we go. I zigged when I should have zagged. Alright, so we will init. Toggle it on. Immediately notice that if it is init before it is active, the game objects are there, but scaled down to 0. How peculiar. What if I toggle? Okay. So it does indeed disable and enable as expected. But we did learn something. We need to have it visible before we can initialize it. And now we've got these, so we'll select gamma. And now raycasts are... Oh, did I get that backwards? Let's go look at game data. Interesting. I mean, it probably isn't actually when we go look here. Yes. No, actually. Ah, right, yeah, so this is that negative thing I was mentioning. So if the canvas is enabled, then disable it. Matter of fact, we'll leave a comment here. If canvas is enabled, disable raycasts. And this function is currently called block raycast, but we actually need to set allow raycasts. If the disable raycasts, otherwise enable them. And this may over time not even be necessary, but it's good to have this for now, because then we'll have fewer situations where we click down on the panel. And depending on how I move the canvases, I may just be able to block raycasts by virtue of them being open. Time will tell. Alright, so we'll toggle it on. Raycasts are now disabled. We will initialize the windows. We're going to pick Delta. And Delta has been selected. And then we're going to click here. Oh. Ah. Let's go check our logic here. Oh no, we're still good. I haven't actually set up the code yet to switch. That will actually be probably caused by an event, I believe. Seems reasonable. And so we will go down here and we'll do a private game event on room selected. And this will likely change later to like on product selected or something along those lines. And then down here, we will... So when the room is selected, it goes through and does its thing. We know it works, so we can get rid of that debug. It selects the room based off the prefab that we found. And in that way, it's creating all the information that's needed for selected room. And in fact, now that I think about it, and I realized I was just explaining things and you couldn't see it, so what I'm going to do here, until I fix my Stream Deck, it's actually, hold on. We'll cut this out. We'll go in here, zoom in a bit. Because you don't care about any of this, I'm sure. We'll at least keep line count, because that's exciting. There we go. What is up with our Winamp window? Oh, there we go. It apparently was not tall enough. And then that window... Whoops. Whoa. Lock my game captures, please. We'll move that over here about and down a little bit. There you go. And then we'll lock that too. Cool. So now we won't lose each other. How nice. Problem solving. Live. Now, what was I dealing with? Right, we were going to fire off this game event. And the first thing I wanted to go check was our room selector. It has a bit of code here that itself is based on a raycast. And that raycast is based off of this. So I almost wish there was a version... Interesting thought. Okay. Let's go look at our game event system. We currently just pass an object through it, which you can cast on the other end. But a part of me is wondering if I want to have... So if we imagine this as a virtual... And for this virtual... Thinking for a moment. And then we could have a typed version of this, which is going to be potentially 2 levels up. Unless we want to literally make... So this is currently just a generic Unity, or a generic scriptable object event. I'm thinking about making one with type T. And then with that, I believe we'd be able to pass it through functions that are expecting a specific type of thing for those rare cases where we actually want to pass through a specific type. Now, obviously, that would cause some problem because the game event listener is expecting an object, not a specific typed thing. So I'm thinking real quick. Why don't we try it? So we're going to make a... What were we going to be passing through anyways? Room data? Well, you still got selected rooms, so let's go back here. All this is doing is... Interesting, where's this being used? Oh, it's only being used in one spot. Selected rooms data... what's it called? Room data variable. Selected room. Because if we go to the room data, or rooms data, I'm sorry, we will find that if memory serves, that set current room is just doing this. So we could actually not use this at all. and instead have selected room dot value set value equal room. What's being passed through here? Just a room. Oh, right. So the reason we're doing this is because we're finding the room based on its object. Ah, okay. So we actually will control Z that a bit. And if we pass that through... I basically want to use this because it is... I'm trying to make sure that things go through the same flow. So we are currently passing through the raycast information for room hit. So I almost wonder if we're one level too high. So there should be a class that is taking in the hit data, and from there it finds the room, and then it passes that through to a class that would then take care of setting the current room. Maybe. But it seems like what we're going to have to do instead, for the time being, is actually put rooms data on here. Which I'm not super hot on, but ultimately you need to get the stuff done, you know? So we're going to comment this out for now. Dot... Oh, but the room hasn't been placed yet. So we're going to eventually want to update our rooms data to include rooms that exist in your inventory but have not been given a position yet. That makes sense. Data.set current room. And so what this will do is actually come through and it'll set it to null because this room does not yet exist. Interesting. Well, for now, actually, we're not going to comment that out. We're just going to mull that over and leave it as is. But we do need to still trigger an event because we want the game state to update, which means we're actually missing something, which is a game state updater of some kind. So let's check game data. How many things are currently doing it directly? Debug Manager is doing it, and the on-room selected is doing it. So let's actually make a consolidated class to do it. Game State Updater. And we'll move that just under directional light, because it's going to be one of the sort of fundamental... Although technically it might belong more in like the initialization universal scene. But time will tell. Time will tell. Game State Updater. Drag that onto here. All right, so that's serialized, and then we're going to have a public void on game state change requested. And then we'll have a switch, which is... Ah, right. So what are we passing through to this? I suppose, as we mentioned before, currently just sends an object. And then this would be game data dot state, no, mode equals value as mode. Oops. So close, so close. On game mode change requested. Then we'll do our old hacky mode. There we go. I actually don't know if I need this switch. Went through all that tabbing fun to do it, and... Right. Okay, so game data dot change update game mode, and that already has a debug, correct? Yes, it does. And then we just need to hook up an event. Game state updater, GSU events. Game event listener. On, whoops. On game state update requested. Let's pop that on there. GSU, found it. Okay. So now when that event is called, it will pass through here. Okay, so then we need to do if mode equals game data.mode. We're actually going to throw a warning here. Okay, and that's good. And then we'll return. Need to put the... There we go. And then we'll go in to here. And we will find the other two locations it's happening. One is in the debug manager. Okay, so that one we'll take care of in a moment. Whoops. Dot raise. And let's see, is this being used anywhere else? It is. Okay, that's fine. I was just checking. And then we need to go take care of it in one other location, which is the room selector. Is it needed? Is this game data needed elsewhere? Yes, it is. Okay. Okay. That's done. And then we need to go take care of those references. The other one is in the debug. Alrighty. And this is good. That does exactly what you would expect, and that's should update the class because they actually support that now, which is wonderful. Yes. All right. Save. And that function you're looking at in the bottom right there, something you could unit test, which is exciting. And we can test this real quick with the debug menu. That's here. All right, mode has been updated to playing. Building, selecting, playing. All right. And then game mode updater, room selector. So what we need to do then on the room selector GUI is set it to building, I believe. And private game event on game mode change requested. Excuse me. Okay. So we will put that here. And game data dot game mode dot building. That looks good. So when the room is selected, we will toggle off the canvas and set the game mode to building. And we'll go back to the controller for it. And then we will test it. We turn it on, we initialize it. Got all of our things. We'll select alpha, and then we'll place it here. Ooh, very nice. And we'll go down to the room builder, because once the room is placed, we would then want to switch back to playing. All right. Game mode change requested dot raise, and the mode will be playing at this point. Set game mode to playing. We're going to look over this real quick, see what we can separate out. What's getting passed through there? Position is used here. Okay. Do we need to do anything else smaller in here? Probably not. This function is getting a bit large, but I think part of that is actually the null checks. Which in the case of the builder and stuff shouldn't happen, but we'll keep those in for now. Okay, so that's good. Alright, so now, if we go to our GUI, we're going to adjust the toggle. And part of that adjustment will be just some, for now, probably just one thing. As a init. So if canvas enabled, well, first things first, has init. If it hasn't init yet, and the canvas is enabling, then we will run the init. And at the end of the init, has init is set to true. And that should be pretty solid. So now when it opens, it should show for us. All right, it worked, which means we can get rid of that init button. And we can actually add in the event for this. Game event listener. This is going to be listening for an event called on show room selector GUI. Or let's say on room selector GUI button pressed. That seems pretty clear. We'll go down here. Give that. Are we using that other? We are not. Where even is that? Hold on. It's under the mansion section. Ah, right, because this is actually the room selector GUI. Then we will add this. So if you press the button, it'll turn it on and off. And while we are at it, we might as well make it a debug button on the debug canvas. Then down here when... Oh, right now it's just a drop-down menu. We actually don't need it to be a drop-down. We just need it to be a button. And we will have it call the GUI one, game event.raise. And we should change the color a little bit. Give it its own identity and its text. Is that set to auto size? It is. Let's make this wider. Whoa. Interesting. Why would they be so large? And then why would they be so small? Because the actual vertical layout group window is quite large. What's the... Yeah, the width is being handled. The canvas is not anything weird. Fascinating. I can't say I've ever actually seen that happen before. You can't see my face as I still haven't fixed my webcam stuff, but I am very Oh! Oh, weird. Okay, let's go back and fix that. There we go. Didn't notice the scaling. $450. Looks good. We'll open all these up. Grab all of them. Why is the text so small? It's adorable, but why is it so small? Oh, I see. Kinda. Just a tiny bit. They are inset a little bit, but that actually shouldn't matter that much. Oh, auto size was off on them. Okay. There we go. All the mysteries of the universe are unveiling or unfolding before us, whichever. Okay, so show selection. We'll select delta, and then we'll place it. And so now we can see that the raycasts were... Oh, right. Visual Studio. Let's make you slightly transparent. Whoops. You can do this. You can do this. Boom. That's not helpful enough. We'll just keep it solid. Which means I should maybe move it. This is more complicated than it should be. Sure. Never enough screen real estate. There we go. Everything just moving around. So as we can see, raycasts were disabled when we opened it. They were disabled when we selected a building. We then were switched to the room building mode. From there, we placed the building and then nulled out the selected room. I make a note to myself that maybe that's not what I want to do later. And then we set the game to playing so that we could now select a room if we wanted. We now, when we clicked this room, we see that the mode has been set to room selected. And then the thing says that it selected this particular room, and it tells you where that particular room is. Excuse me. So that is, I think, pretty sweet progress, because that's a fully functional UI window, other than adding, say, pagination, which I'm not going to do for now because we don't know what it's going to look like in the end. So there's no point in going beyond the base setup. The next time I do a dev video, we will do probably the same thing but for Moosecats, and so I'm going to need to make 4 different visual ones for that, just so it's easier for us to see the differences. Probably use the same naming conventions. And after that, we will think about what we need to do for an adventure GUI, where we'll be assigning the Moosecats to the adventure GUI, and that's going to come from... Man, yeah, I need to make a list of all the windows we'll eventually need, because I'm now realizing at this moment that there's going to be a handful of them, probably. That's good to know. It's like stream job security, I guess. Anywho, if you watched here, thanks for watching here. Hope you enjoyed the spoopy Dark Souls music. And if you watched on YouTube, thanks for watching there, and yeah, have a nice day.